Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is the Banner Saga. One of the first really successful gaming Kickstarters, not the first, but very much around the time of Double Fine Adventure, aka Broken Age, which, interestingly enough, also popped up within a few days of the Banner Saga on Steam. It's made by a company called Stoic, that consists of, initially, 3 founders, from various different places. One, I believe, was actually a NASA engineer, and then they had a couple of guys that worked on The Old Republic. We had one guy that worked on Star Wars Galaxies and all sorts of things like that, so a little bit of ex-BioWare here and there. And they came together to kickstart something called the Banner Saga, which is I would say it's a role-playing game, and in the strictest sense, it is. You know, if you were to go by the definition that you play a role, you most assuredly do. And you lead a Viking tribe across the land. It's a sort of a mythical Viking tribe. As you can see, there are giants with horns, because why the hell not? And you make various decisions along the way, and you fight in SRPG-style tactical battles. And that's how the game works. So let's have a look at the options menu. Really? Yeah. Pathetic, basically. Completely and utterly pathetic. And most of the time, I would look to justify that in some way by saying, oh, you know, well, it's 2D, or, you know, it's a pixel art game. There are some real silly oversights. One, there's no captions, which means that when there is voice acting, which does happen from time to time, most of the game is done in text, but there is some voice acting, there are no captions for it. So if you happen to be hearing impaired, well, enjoy missing out on a bunch of really important story elements that are told to you as you move through the land. That's a ridiculous oversight. It's also the case that some people just like to have captions on. Maybe English is not their first language. This game does not appear to offer language options of any description, so it's nice to have it on the screen. It helps. It really does help to interpret what's going on. Again, about 90% of the story is in text, but the voice acting, well, for some reason, it doesn't have captions, so I don't know what's going on with that. Also, there are no volume sliders. There is on and off toggles for sound and music, and that is it. They didn't even tooltip that, but I think it's fairly obvious what it means. That's really disappointing. Again, there are plenty of instances where you would want your music to be a bit quieter or your sound effects to be a bit louder. There's no individual voice toggle here either, so this is really lackluster. Aside from that, you got full screen on or off, so you have no proper resolution options whatsoever, and you can't really do anything with the graphical fidelity. Now, this game is 2D in a rotoscoped style, so I think it will run on a lot of things, but I did notice some rather interesting frame rate problems all over the place, which I'll talk about in a minute once we're off the main menu. Now, outside of that, you've got the Heraldry here. Now, this consists of a bunch of banners, which, as you can see, well, mine is not there. Down the bottom, you'll notice that the Kickstarter backers for crest designs are there. All sorts of them. All sorts. But I actually backed this a while ago, and I backed it for the amount that would have been required to make a crest, and I was never sent the email to do it. It may have just arrived in the spam folder or something. It's easy to miss that stuff. But I wanted to shove my top hat in there, and it never happened. So there you go. But there are plenty of options. Certainly plenty of options. Including, I don't even know who this guy is. Yes, let's have him. Why not? I don't care. We'll go with him. And that's that for the menus. So, let's resume the game, shall we? Bearing in mind that almost everything in this game, I suppose, could be considered a minor spoiler. And you should consider that before watching the rest of this video. But any game that's got a story is going to have spoilers in it to some degree. So, just bear that in mind. This is about 2 hours in, I believe. So let us resume the game, shall we? And then I want to look and see whether or not those frame rate issues are still here. I streamed the game on my Twitch channel for research a little while ago, and we saw some very interesting frame rate variations. So we will keep that in mind. It may very well just have been the stream, though, so we will discover that one way or the other here. Alright, so the game consists of 3 parts. It consists of the traveling part, which you will see your tribe moving across the land with a giant-ass red banner, which is really awesome. And then you've also got the camp, which involves various different hub buildings like heroes, which is where you can level up your different soldiers, and you can also rest which consumes supplies but regains health and things like that. And you can go to the market and spend your currency, which, as you can see up at the top, is renowned. So if we go there, we can actually buy items, and we can buy supplies. So you probably got a little bit of an Oregon Trail feel from this with the whole idea of supplies. Yes, you need to feed your tribe to keep them alive. Currently have 21 days of supplies. That's pretty good. And they also tell you how large your tribe actually is. I have 270 clansmen, 49 fighters, and a Val. And, in fact, no Val. And then we have normal morale right now. And this is all affected by decisions that you make throughout the campaign, which are all static. So they will happen at the same time in the same place. As far as I can tell, there are no random events. But there are various different outcomes to those events, and those outcomes are permanent. Choices do very much matter in this game. So that's quite nice because it gives it some degree of replayability, as well as, of course, that nice level of permanence, the feel that your choices really made a difference, because they did. Alright, so what to do from this position? Well, currently we're actually locked outside of this area right here. We're locked outside of this town. We want to get in. Now, Ivor, our rather large giant friend, said he was willing to push down the doors, but that's clearly not going to work, especially considering there are archers on the wall, so we are not going to do anything of the sort. Find out a little bit more from the crowd. Most of the exposition in this game is done via either these little dialogue trees here, or these scenes with a little bit of animation on them. And you should see a little bit of that momentarily. So we're going to leave the gates for the time being. Head over to the houses. And see what we can do. So we'll be presented once again with a few more challenges. I think we just need to hit the rest button in order to do that. There we go. Oh. Alright, so we can help the rest house. We want to do that. Settle in for the long haul, rest for the day, tend to the wounded. We'll tend to the wounded because, you know what, we're nice. People like that. And we found some information in the process. I overheard one of the woman... Never mind, let's try reading. Let's go with that. I overheard from one woman that the city has been sending carts with food around. Could be a way in, indeed. So we could ambush that, potentially, or we could confront it. Oh, we could leave the food cart alone. It'll probably lead to no more food for refugees. That doesn't sound too good. So we'll wait and confront them. We'll have words with them and see what happens. So we may be able to get in this way. And this is where the rest of the exposition happens in these little scenes. They're very, very nicely put together. Although there's this bare minimum amount of animation in them, which I assume has got to be a stylistic choice. 99% of this figure is static, and then you've got just this little bit right here and the blinking, of course. Alright. Fair enough. So now we're left with a bunch of decisions. Now, the frame rate is varying in this scene, by the way. It's actually dipping down to about 50 and then going back up. We think, this is a theory that we had in the chat, that it might have something to do with the snow, that they're actually varying the frame rate to make the snow move a little bit more dynamically or something like that. It's a little hard to explain, but it really doesn't make any difference whatsoever. There is no big movement in any of these scenes. They're very static with a tiny little bit of animation, so it doesn't really matter too much. So, I want to get into the city. And we'll have words with Ekel, shall we? Yeah. Let's have words with Ekel. Why not? Okay, then. Well, apparently, we're going to be getting in on the back of Groundskeeper Willie over here. Lots and lots and lots of text. So we will make a decision. What I want to show you after this is, of course, the combat, because that's the main meat of the game. You're going to be riding around, you're going to be encountering events, you're going to be making decisions, listening to conversations, and then you'll be getting into the battle system, which is where the real mechanics of the game actually are. I'm cool with that. We'll fight for the twitchy-eyed guy. We'll join you for now. Alright. Okay, so this should lead to some combat. And on to Chapter 3. And then we can show you what most of the game consists of. You're going to be spending an awful lot of time in the combat, because that's really the thing to do outside of conversations. Oh, what is going on here? Alright, as you will notice, the story is split over multiple areas. And apparently we just got a bunch of Varl fighters and supplies and all manner of different things. I think this might actually be a separate party entirely by the looks of it. Obviously, I don't really want to stay on this dialogue for too long, because this isn't really helping you in any way. I would actually like to explain the game, and I can't really do that. So I will be almost randomly picking options here. We cover the mountainside in dredged bodies. Yes. There we go. That sounds like a plan. Let's utterly slaughter them. Alright, so we've got another party here, which is entirely separate to the other ones. And if we go to the Heroes Hall, I guess we can have yet more conversations. Which is fine. I mean, I don't mind that this stuff is here. You can skip through it fairly quickly, but you'll probably want to be paying attention to the dialogue, because some of these choices really do matter. It's a little bit unfortunate that they elected not to voice act this stuff, but it is to be expected. They were on a fairly limited budget. It would have helped a lot, I think, to have voice acting for this kind of stuff, because there's a lot of text to dredge through from time to time, pun intended. Alright. Do you think we're walking into a death trap? I'm sure we should be fine. Alright. Let's just get back to it. And I'm going to try and show you something else. So far, all you've really seen is text, which really isn't all that helpful. I wanted to go back to the Heroes Hall and then show you more of that, but it looks like we're going to get yet more. No, we're not. There we go. Okay. All right. So, the tribe that you've got is really just a set of numbers. The things that really matter are the heroes in your tribe. So in this case, we've actually got 4. 3 Varl and a regular human. Now, you'll be able to upgrade these guys. As you can see, this guy is now a rank 2 Warhawk, and also looks like he's wearing pajamas. As you can see, it's Santa the Varl right here. And each of these characters has a couple of abilities. The active ability, in this case, Tempest for the Warhawk class, and Heavy Impact, which is the passive ability. Every time you level up, and you do so by getting kills, so he needs 2 more kills to level up to rank 3, you can put points in these various different statistics which do that, as you can see. So, exertion, willpower, strength, and your abilities will level up with your rank. You can't actually do anything with that. So, you got a degree of customization there, although it's not particularly in depth. Outside of that, you can add an item to each character. I think we're going to do a promotion now, actually. Let's promote our War Master right here. So, he's going to get higher stats and allow us to grab a little bit higher item rank. So, we can throw a point here in shield. He's a bit of a War Master, so I don't think we actually need him to do that. Yeah, we want him to be doing damage, really, so his armor, probably not. We're going to just whack a little bit extra in strength, and then call it a day. And do we have enough for a level up on him? Yes, we can update him as well. So his skill is Rally, as you can see here, with 3 ranks. He can grant an ally +2 willpower. And he doesn't have a ranged ability. And he's also got Light Step. Allows him to move around bodies, pass through, but not stop on any allies. So that's quite useful. He's a little bit of a support character. Cool. Give him a little bit extra willpower there. Alright, good. So that's that. And aside from that, the equipment customization consists of a single item. So that is really about it. It's not as in-depth as you would perhaps hope. Even from a tactics game, just having one item is a little low. But at least the items are fairly enjoyable. There's some nice passive effects. Okay, so we're riding across the countryside, as you can see, with 466 Varl, 185 fighters. We're clearly ready to go. Okay, we'll deal with it ourselves. There we go. We're actually going to fight this solely because I actually want to show you the combat system, because here's where the meat of the damn game actually is. Alright, let's get into combat. So I've put my heroes in there. And interestingly enough, the frame rate problems on this map, at any rate, don't seem to be present. They're a little bit variable, but for the most part, it's fine. Okay, so we're fighting a bunch of dredge here. Now, the first thing you might want to do in combat, by the way, is turn on the banners, because that will tell you what's going on here. So, this combat system is a little tricky. That's something that you'll have to get used to. It's a little bit out of the ordinary here. And even actually turning the banners on actually halves the frame rate. That's really interesting. Can't imagine why that would be. We're sitting at around 100, then we clicked that, and it was about 55, so that's very strange. Can't really explain that. Okay, so the first thing you do is you deploy your various heroes, and then you go and beat the living snot out of whatever happens to be in your way. We're going to put that's our shield basher there, I believe. I want to put him over here. I'm going to put our weaker guy behind, and then we'll flank on either side with some of our heavier guys. At least that was the plan anyway. There we go. Now they're moving. Excellent. All right, ready to rock and roll. Okay, so the battles work in terms of a turn order. So you can see who's going to be moving when, and it alternates as well. So until the end of the fight, you're always going to be moving one guy, attacking with one guy, and then having somebody else move and attack and so on and so forth from the other side. Now, these stats up to the top here are fairly important. There are 3 stats you need to worry about. Willpower, that is the yellow stat. Willpower allows you to boost various different actions. Like, you can move farther to the yellow squares if you burn willpower to do it. You can do extra damage and so on and so forth. The blue statistic is armor. So the higher your armor, the better. If your armor is higher than the opponent's strength, then you have a chance of completely deflecting the blow entirely. So as you can see, our shield guy has higher armor than anything else. However, armor can be attacked and worn down. And then finally, the strength. Now, you can't really take too much strength damage if your armor is high, because it reduces the amount of strength damage that can be done to you. However, once your armor's broken, you're going to take a lot of strength damage, and when you take that damage, you actually lose the ability to deal damage, because strength is not just your hit points, it is actually your swinging power. So that is something to bear in mind there. So you have to balance doing damage to armor and doing damage to strength. You may even want to just leave some of these characters lying around with low strength because they won't be able to do much damage to you. If you still have very high armor, chances are you can deflect those blows and you'll maybe just take minor armor damage and nothing else. So those are the things you've got to consider. You also have an ability. Each of them have an ability. In this case, we have Sundering Impact. That's very nice. Sundering Impact, 100% to hit, +1 strength, +1 break to target, and +1 break to heavy impact. And enemies adjacent to the target take 1 strength damage. So what we're going to want to do here, I think, is go after the big guy. We're going to move in here, and we're actually going to use that Sundering Impact ability. We're going to attack him with it. And then that should do some adjacent damage as well. And it did. Okay, so that was a good start. You'll notice the animation quality is really quite something. I've got to say it is extremely impressive, and that is because they used a method by the name of Rotoscoping. It actually looks like the old animated Hobbit movie from back in the day, and the aesthetic is very unique. Definitely, at least in modern times, difficult to find a game that actually looks like this. Okay. Bring the pain. I think we're going to do that. We're going to just wander him right into the middle. He's going to be the big tank. We're going to enable Bring the Pain. So that's going to mean that he's going to do extra damage to anyone that attacks him. And then we'll do some break damage here just to break through some of this armor. Okay. There are a bunch of dredge here. We have to be a little bit careful. Now, this fellow has the ability to do a whirlwind attack. We're not going to do that here. We're actually going to sneak up behind this one and completely obliterate him. And we can actually do a full 10 strength damage, so we're going to kill him immediately. Every time we kill him, we get a little star on the Warhorn, which is extra willpower you can put onto any character, so that's quite helpful. Alright, don't think he's actually going to be too much use, so we'll just move him in, and then I guess we can end the turn. We could do Rally here, but there's no real willpower to be given. So I want to try and move my guy that can do Whirlwind into the center there. Alright. I can do 7 damage, kill him outright. I can do 9 damage and take him out, and then do extra damage to the guy next to him. So we're going to do that. That's also going to do armor damage, because Dredge is Splinter. So that's going to be great. Alright, so we're taking a little bit of strength damage on him. So, as you can notice, there are a bunch of different classes, and the combat system is a little bit unusual. It certainly takes some getting used to, but that's absolutely fine. That's what makes the game quite interesting. It's a little bit unique. I haven't actually played a game that has this specific system. There's obviously quite a few SRPGs that have the same sort of idea behind it, in the sense that what you do is you move one character at a time, you play a little bit tactically, you think about formations, you think a few moves ahead, and all that kind of thing. Uh-oh, this is getting a little bit dicey for him. We might have to get him out of the picture, actually. We can run through and get into the middle of this fight, but it doesn't seem like a particularly good idea. So we're going to go around the side, run through him, and I think we're going to try and do some armor damage to him. And we're going to boost it up with 3 willpower for 4 armor damage. Very nice. Big smack there. But most of the SRPG games don't play in this particular way. They don't have that system, and as a result, this one certainly feels different to games like Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre or Shining Force or anything along those lines. And that's good. The last thing I think we wanted was that, but with Vikings. I don't know, maybe for a lot of people that was exactly what they wanted, but for me, I was hoping for something a little bit more original, and that's actually exactly what we got. I need to find out who is going next. Is it him? It looks like it is. Can I finish him off? I can't finish him off. That's unfortunate. I'll just get the kill on him then. There we go. I wanted to try and kill the guy who was going next, because that would have got me an extra turn, but never mind. It's fine. They've actually got together now, so we can do a whirlwind if we so desire, and I think we do desire. So we're going to go with Tempest, and we'll target him. There we go, so that should hit both of them. Didn't do a huge amount of damage, but it did hit both of them, so that's not too bad. Reduces the strength a little bit, which means the damage coming in will be a little less as well. I do like that strength system. As I said, it is really quite unique. It's not something that I've seen in too many games. The idea that once you reduce someone's HP, they will actually hit less hard because they're a lot weaker is a good idea, and I think something that we should certainly hope to see in other games. Is it safe? Yeah, I think it actually might be. I think it'll be safe to come back in here, because these guys run low strength, so I can bring him back in. I can try and take him out. Hang on a minute. Could I Sundering Impact and hit both of them? Maybe. And it was adjacent to the target. Yeah, this is adjacent. Alright, I might be able to take both of them out here. Let's try it. Oh, well, it was a decent amount of damage nonetheless, so I'll take what I can get here. And then my Warhawk's taking attacks, but that's not really too important. Who's going next? It is him. Yeah, let's reduce his strength just a little bit, so he doesn't attack quite as hard when he goes after the Warhawk. Using a little bit of willpower, but that's not going to make too much of a difference. They're going to get flattened. Overall, I find the combat system to be extremely satisfying. It's a bit slow-paced, which is exactly what it should be in an SRPG. And in fact, that was a problem that I had with the multiplayer component for this game, which is actually free, by the way. It's a little bit of a strange decision. Banner Saga Factions was released quite some time ago. And you would think, well, why on earth would they do that? I guess it was just to make a little bit extra money. It's a free-to-play game which involves leveling up a band of heroes and fighting other heroes. But it really had this problem of dragging on forever, because imagine how slow-paced this is, then double that. So, you know, it gets a bit unfortunate. Against the AI, though, it's really, really good. I actually enjoy it an awful lot. Okay, we're going to move over here. As it is... Oh, I screwed that up completely, didn't I? Oh, man. That's unfortunate. Can't make another move. All right. You can, by the way, make moves before committing, which you should do. With the right-click, you can actually set waypoints. I haven't got into the habit of doing that yet, so I'm actually not going to be able to attack anything here because it's not in range, because I'm a moron. So, never mind. All right. We'll take what we can. So if you actually want to move around tactically, you can do it like this. That's a set of waypoints, then you can cancel with the right click. So you can be a little bit careful. And every time you move, by the way, it will put indicators under the things that you can actually attack, so that's good. You are given the information you need. He's on 3. I'm a little bit worried about that. I'm actually going to back him off now. The hope is that he does not get horribly murdered by that dredge, although it is possible. Coming in from the back, doing yet one more damage. We've got to finish him off right now. I think we should be able to do that. I think what I'm actually going to do here is... yeah. I'll blow the Warhorn 3 times, and that's going to allow me to do attack damage for 5, using 3 willpower. Very cool. Yeah, the combat is really satisfying. I like it a lot. I do have a couple of problems with it. One of them is that the game does not have alternate perspectives. It's done entirely from this pseudo-isometric perspective. You can't flip it round. What that means is, especially when you have a lot of large characters with small characters surrounding them, that the characters can actually get obscured behind each other, which is a little bit silly. It means that clicking them can get a little bit awkward. It's not the worst thing. I'm actually going to lose a character here. I really messed this up. I'm actually surprised, but yeah, we're going to end up losing a character. It's fine. It just means an injury, and he'll recover from it eventually. But I was just a bit of a moron for even allowing that to happen in the first place. I don't know what the hell was going on with that. Alright, we'll finish him off. And that's going to enable something called Pillage Mode, which means that all of our guys will actually get to attack one after another. It means that you don't have this weird situation where you attack and then the one remaining guy attacks, then you attack, then the one remaining guy attacks. It would actually give an advantage to a player that was losing, which would be pretty stupid. So I'm very much glad that that is not the case anymore. Alright. She'll move in and finish this off, I think. As much damage as possible. He's actually got deflection. That's a little bit strange. Alright. We'll take down some of his armor and then we can finish him off. So yeah, that perspective issue is a little bit of a pain. I imagine they didn't even render it in other directions. So the only thing that's been rendered is actually what you're seeing on the battlefield right there. It can get a little bit annoying. What I'd also like is for the interface to not be based around clicking the feet of the characters, and for that very reason, because that can be very easily obscured. I think that there's a lot of wasted space in the UI that could very easily be fixed. That is not the kind of thing that you would really need to worry about too much. You're not limited on space. You could have that UI elsewhere. It's almost as if they designed it with tablets in mind, even though it came out on PC. Maybe there's going to be an iOS version some time later, but as it stands, it's on PC, so they didn't really need to do that. The other problem I've got with it is actually in the music, funnily enough, and that's weird because the music is actually by the composer of games like Journey and Monaco, which is just mind-blowingly good, but the music is a little bit too few and far between. In fact, in the story sections, you often find a piece of music plays for about 30 seconds and then just stops, and the rest of it is just a little bit of ambient snow noise and wind, which is a little bit disappointing to say the least. The battle music is also highly repetitive, which is unfortunate. I was hoping for some really great Viking war chants and things like that, but more often than not, it's just some very anxious sounds of string trepidation, I suppose. It's just, you know, the sound of a violin where they're doing a scene trying to build tension where everyone sounds really nervous. It's kind of like that, but for 20 minutes at a time, which doesn't really do the job, unfortunately. Outside of that, you're presented with a bunch of really cool choices that seem to genuinely matter. Some excellent characters, if you can be bothered to actually troll your way through the text. A really interesting world with a mixture of Vikings and strange and unique mythology. That's a pretty cool hero management. So that's okay. I'm fairly happy with that. Although, I would like to maybe see a little bit more in-depth hero management, let's be honest. Only having one item, maybe if you level up much higher, you can actually equip a second item, but the overall character customization is not exactly in-depth, even when we level someone up, which I assume we probably have the ability to do. Yeah, if we promote Mogher, for instance, then it's like, oh, all right, okay, I've got a couple of stats, so I basically have 5 stats here, and then I can throw some points into these, and you know, that's kind of it. And it's like, well, I was hoping for a little more, but you don't really get that. And each character only has one ability with 3 ranks, which are all very much linear upgrades, and then their passive ability as well. And I like the fact that the characters are defined by those classes, but it also means that the development is actually very limited. So those looking for a lot of RPG character development in terms of stats and customization, you're not really going to find it in the Banner Saga. They don't really have it. In terms of a role-playing game, it really just comes down to the character interaction and making decisions, which I do like. It's got this Oregon Trail theme to it where you've got this meta aspect of rolling around with your tribe and having different numbers here, which actually do impact various events, and you can either gain or lose them depending on what's going on there. So I approve of all of that stuff. I think it's a very nice mix, the Oregon Trail style of things, alongside what is basically an SRPG with a little bit of role-playing along the way. It's a heady combination and one that I've found very enjoyable up to this point. Minor disappointments like the options menu, which I still think should be... that's an easy fix in a patch. The fact that there's no captions under the voice acting is very, very silly, something they certainly should fix. It doesn't have manual saves, from what I can tell. It seems to just auto-save very frequently. I can understand doing that in order to stop save scumming, so that if you make a choice it's actually permanent, and it's very much a game that warrants a second playthrough after you've beaten it, which takes approximately between 8 to 10 hours, based on what I've heard from people. And things like not being able to turn the camera around and minor frame drops here and there, but this is a game where the frame rate actually doesn't make that much of a difference at all. It's a tactical battle RPG crossed with some static scenes where the frame rate isn't really going to affect you. It seems like those are minor bugs that can be cleared up. The frame rate shouldn't be cut almost in half when you turn on the stats banners. That's a little bit silly. But they're minor quibbles. I think that they've really managed to achieve what they were setting out to do here, and I'm really happy as a Kickstarter backer with the Banner Saga in its current state. The battles are very satisfying to play, the characters are very interesting, the animation is just gorgeous. And the only disappointment presentation-wise, aside from the lack of animation in those static scenes, is the fact that the music is too few and far between. Aside from that, it's very easy to recommend the Banner Saga as a cool experience. It is $25 or your regional equivalent. For me, that's totally fine for a game of this length and this kind of genre. It may put some people off, but again, there is a free multiplayer component, which I personally don't like, but I know some people do, so hey. And then, of course, you also have the possibility of a second playthrough with different choices, so I think there is replayability here. So there you go, it looks like a Kickstarter success for the Banner Saga as far as I'm concerned. Really well-realized game. I think Stoic did a bang-up job with this, and I've been enjoying it very much up to this point, and I'm looking forward to finishing it. My name has been TotalBiscuit, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.